It's never been easier to support independent voices and experience the Portland Film Festival. Simply grab your Xfinity voice remote and say Portland Film Festival.
Next, the Watch With app appears with all the content at your fingertips. Enjoy behind-the-scenes access to free films created by a diverse array of talented independent filmmakers.
Willie, there are so many great movies to watch from the comfort of our own home, and experiencing the Portland Film Festival has never been easier.
Hello, my name is Glenna Bermer, and I am the producer and director of the film Nanakorobi Yaoki, which is Japanese for 7 times you may fall, but get back up the 8th. It is a very famous Japanese proverb that has to do with having the strength to keep trying, even in times of great difficulty. It's the story of a young girl in Hokkaido who undergoes 7 major challenges in a snowstorm in order to save the life of something that she loves dearly. The film was created in collaboration with Gabby Breiter as the artistic director and Deep Sky Studios of Portland, and it was done in the style of sumie as a tribute to my mother, who was a very well-known sumie artist. Thank you.
All right, ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, and hi everyone. My name is Brad Lichtenstein. I am the director of the documentary When Claude Got Shot.
Hi, I'm Claude Motley from Claude Got Shot.
This is the story of Claude, who tragically was shot 5 years ago. And we tell the story of his journey to personal healing and physical healing, and also all the twists and turns through the criminal justice system over those 5 years.
Not only did me and Brad work on this together, but also we've been friends for like the last 18 years.
And in fact, I was actually with Claude's son on the next day and broke the news to him that his dad had been shot.
I hope you all enjoy this window into our life and hope you enjoy the movie.
Please watch. Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Noemi Labrado Sanchez. I am 17 years old and I am currently a senior in high school. I worked together with my sister and 2 of my cousins to put this film called First Time Home. In this film, you are seeing us getting ready to travel to southern Mexico to meet a lot of our family members over there who we've never met before. And one of those family members was our seriously ill great-grandpa. You are also going to get an idea of what it was like and what it's like to live and be an immigrant indigenous family. You are also going to be able to see some struggles that we've had to go through to be able to get to where we are now. I really hope you guys enjoyed this film as much as we enjoyed to film it, and thank you so much for the support.
Hi, my name is Grace Kelly and I'm the director of Superheroes. Superheroes presents us with a world where everybody with a disability is given a superpower. So we get to see a whole bunch of superheroes navigate the social intricacies of being a national icon, but also a person with a visible or non-visible disability.
A lot of people say that I don't look autistic, but autism is spectrum and you can't really look autistic.
This film was a ton of fun to make because of all the wonderful, creative, talented individuals that I got to work on it with. Every single aspect of production was over Zoom, and we had to make it within 5 days because it was part of the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. But I think what is the most rewarding aspect of being a part of this film is just to see all the talent and passion that was put into it. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hi there, Portland Film Festival. My name is Sarah King and I'm the director and producer of Our Dad Danielle, which is a documentary feature about Danielle Joy Healy, her wife of over 30 years, their 2 daughters, in Sugar Land, Texas. We chart Danielle after she comes out at 57 years old as a trans woman and how it affects her family and also her law career. We also get to interview some people like Sasha, Jerry, and Aunt Andrea, and we get to see what it's like to be a trans woman in a place like Texas. This film is about a lot of things. It's about trans rights. It's about family. It's about finding yourself no matter what the age and the beauty that comes from self-acceptance. We hope that this film resonates with you, that you'll seek out how you can help other trans people around the US and the world because their rights are being attacked daily. 70% of Americans haven't met a trans person knowingly. And we hope with this film that you feel like you've met some. We hope you enjoy watching it, and we hope you like it. All right, thank you very much.
Hello, Portland Film Festival. My name is Brian Scott Steele, and I am the writer, director of a short film called In the Event of My Death. The film stars Steve Nagel as Sam, Aaron Raglan Crowley as Mandy, and Jacob Lane Miller as Jeremy. In the Event of My Death is a dramatic comedy adventure. It takes place on the day of Jeremy's funeral, and you find out that he left this nostalgic journey for his best friend and former bandmate Sam and his sister Mandy along the way as well. I wanted to tell a story about death, but do it in a more lighthearted or comedic way, something that left you feeling uplifted. On behalf of our entire crew, thank you so much, Portland Film Festival. It's a true honor to be a part of this year's fest. It was extra special for me and my team because we shot it in Seattle, but a lot of the crew came up from Portland. Anybody watching out there, thank you so much for watching the film. Cheers.
My name's Henry Mortensen. I directed a feature-length documentary called Skating Polly, Ugly Pop, about a band and a family called Skating Polly, who have been playing for over 10 years, but are still only in their early 20s. They play a style of music called Ugly Pop. It's beautiful, but it still has all the rough edges, still has the blemishes showing, hasn't been airbrushed. Their personality is still in there. Sometimes it's sort of loud and punk, sometimes it's quiet and melodic or even folky. Their earnestness has inspired a lot of other musicians to take them sort of under their wing or just to play with them, like X and Kate Nash and Babes in Toyland. I find them really inspiring, and I hope you enjoy learning more about them.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Poling, and I am the director and producer of Tipless. Tipless is a feature documentary that focuses on the tip-free restaurant movement in the U.S. This film was really born out of my own experience working within the restaurant industry. I spent 10 years of my life in and out of different restaurants, and I got the chance to experience firsthand the tip-free restaurant movement and the ethos behind it and why it was gaining traction in so many progressive cities, and I felt like I had to try and tell that story. What I thought was going to be a simple documentary that focused on one restaurant ended up being much bigger than I ever expected, featuring multiple restaurants in multiple cities, and I'm just very grateful for all their participation. I feel so honored to be able to make this project, to start a conversation about the industry and what we might be able to do to make it more sustainable. I'm just very grateful to be able to show you this film and grateful that we were able to do it for the first time at the Portland Film Festival.
Hi, I'm Ryan Webb, writer, director, and co-producer of the dark comedy short film You Can't Use a Semicolon in a Suicide Note. Have you ever tried to write a suicide note only to discover that you're not any good at it? Or have you ever considered using a quote to open your suicide note? Writing a suicide note is hard, but Catherine Hess has the help you're looking for. Catherine Hess is a professional suicide note editor. Just call 555-555-555-555-555, and Catherine will help you to craft your perfect salutation to the world. I'd like to make it clear to the audience that I'm in no way trying to make light of suicide. This project was very personal and therapeutic for me. It's just my opinion that humor can make a difficult topic a little easier to talk about. I hope that we have more conversations about mental health and suicide, and maybe the more we talk about it, the less taboo it becomes, and the more comfortable people might be to reach out when they need help.
Hi, I'm Melanie Uy.
And I'm Erica Wren. Welcome to our debut feature-length documentary, World of Henna.
This film began as a passion project and modest solo endeavour to create an educational short for henna artists, but it expanded into a much more ambitious undertaking once Erica jumped on board with me.
World of Henna is a gift for the international henna community, as well as anyone interested in the people, art, and culture of India.
Join us on a henna pilgrimage, a non-stop epic adventure of bustling streets,
Punjabi weddings and dance-offs,
monkey attacks,
rooftop henna parties,
experiencing the henna farms and factories of Sojat,
camel processions,
dancing in the streets with Hijra,
documenting intricate bridal henna, and making new friends along the way.
We hope you find World of Henna captivating, informative, and inspiring. Okay, I think that was good. I think I actually got that right.
Film Festival. I am Ryan Marco, director of the music video Maple Crunch by the band Gorilla Wizard. I also play bass in the band. This video came pretty shortly after the release of our debut album, Tales from the Cauldron. I think the lyrics and the story of this song it just perfectly lent itself to a funny, cool video. We had a very small budget, basically just enough to hire our incredible cinematographer, Todd. The rest of the crew was basically the band, friends of mine, friends of friends, incredibly generous. I'm super thankful to the people at the Portland Film Festival for allowing us to show our hard work to all their attendees, all the fellow filmmakers, and I really hope to be back soon with whatever is next. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at gorilla_wizard, at RYMCE Guitar, at Todd.Raw, at Unison Productions. Again, I am Ryan, director of Gorilla Wizard's Maple Crunch music video, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later.
Hello. Welcome to the Portland Film Fest, Meet the Director Q&A series. This is week 4 of the fest, week 4 of this Q&A. And, we have about a week left, a week and change. So, if you haven't seen a lot of these films, you still have a lot in your queue, it's really time to get caught up. Welcome to the Portland Film Fest Q&A. My name is Geisha Marie Bland. I'm a New York-based screenwriter, and I've been hosting these. So, let's jump right in and talk to our first director, our first guest, Ryan Marco, who's director of the short Gorilla Wizard, Maple Crunch. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Geisha, how are you?
I'm great. Where are you dialing in from?
I am in my office in Brooklyn right now.
Okay, well, we're both in Brooklyn.
Oh, nice.
Really cool thing. We've been doing this this fest because there's a lot of indigenous voices. We're all sort of checking out what indigenous land we're on. And in Brooklyn, we're in the Lenape land, Lenape-Muncie. I don't know if you knew that. I just discovered that. But just a cool factoid. So great. Thanks for submitting this film to Portland Film Fest. Thanks for being an independent filmmaker. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So, I watched your short, which is kind of a hybrid, right? It's kind of a short and it's actually a music video, correct?
Yeah, it is a music video, yeah. for the band. I am also in the band. So you get a little clip of me in there towards the end and the
dark shadow in the end with the 2 guitars, that was you.
The camera kind of cycles through the band at one point because I personally I always hate when I see like a band performance in a music video. It always feels really inauthentic. So I limited it to just one shot of everyone playing at some point, and I am in that one shot, and I can't stand watching myself rock out to that song when I know that I'm not actually playing it,
Right. Speaking of music, no, it's great. I mean, the band, videos, we forget, the origins of music videos are as short films. Some of our best directors and short filmmakers, make the transition to music video and back and forth. So is this what you tend to work in, or what you specialize in?
No. So this is basically the first thing I've shot since my senior thesis, which I graduated in 2012. So I worked in production for a couple of years, not as a director, but on the production side, and then I transitioned into a different industry entirely. So then this was kind of the first thing I've done, and now I've got the bug again, so I don't want to stop.
Well, don't stop. It's a fun clip. I watched it with a friend, and full disclosure, when it comes to music, I don't know much. I know a lot about film, not about music.
Sure. Yeah.
But I have it on very good authority. This is Norwegian black metal. Is that true?
No.
Okay,
No.
so okay, forget that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big metal guy. I like all music, but I primarily play and listen to metal. Norwegian black metal is a very specific genre. There's so many like subgenres and subgenres of subgenres in metal, and Norwegian black metal is a specific. It's you have like we have the growly vocals in that song, in our song. The black metal tends to have the high shrieks, and the production value is intentionally terrible.
Oh, I see.
It should sound like it was recorded in an empty shack in the forest of Norway.
I see. That's an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, that's their aesthetic, and some of it's like honestly really hard to listen to for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think of myself as a metal girl, but
I didn't think that Portland was, a metal town, which is why I'm even more happy that you guys have had us. And we got to perform the other night, which I thought was really fun. We've never done anything like that before, and we had such a blast getting that together.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, this year, one of the specially curated programs of, there's so many. There's a women's voices, Black voices, but there's a huge section of music and dance, which I think is great. Because I think in film we forget that the origins of film is so much just about this kind of stuff, music and dance. So it's so great that you can work in both and develop both. And I will say, I'm going to ask you a question. I had the feeling that this video was inspired or conceived in an altered state. Would that be correct?
No, it's just kind of my main state.
Oh, okay.
It seems like that it is like, it's a weird one, but that's kind of so with our band, we tend to just take things and run with them. From anything from the name, which was a joke, and we decided to keep it. And then all the songs on the album, they're all working titles, and we decided to keep them. And then our singer came in and crafted these lyrics and stories around our ridiculous working titles. So Maple Crunch was just because our guitarist literally had cereal that morning. So he's like, oh, that's fine, it's called Maple Crunch. And then it became a thing. And then, and so this project is primarily the brains of our guitarist, Larry. And he's and we're all like kind of big sci-fi fantasy people. And, he took this concept and started running with it. He developed all this like lore around the character, because we chose to have the mascot in the traditional metal sense. A lot of the older bands have a mascot. So all this lore and this huge backstory and a card game and real Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. But he really took everything and runs with it. It's such a kick out of every time. I now think of the character and all the songs almost like Doctor Who, where it's like this character is just popping up in all this different times, because the character is supposed to be like 1,000 or like 5,000 years old. So just popping up in different time, and he just always gets it wrong. So it's like he made this cereal, but it's not really intended to be eaten, and then someone eats it, and then he has to save him. And then there's another song about he puts a spell on a children's toy dinosaur, and it becomes a giant dinosaur like Godzilla and destroys the city. So it's all this just like wacky, silly, fun stuff. I would love to shoot that one, but I don't think I have the money for it. But Maple Crunch I have the money for.
Well, it sounds like you've got a great creative community, and you guys nurture each other and you collaborate. That's great.
Yeah, totally.
I just thought my previous question, I was like, oh, is this it feels like a really weird trip, clearly. Or I was like, oh, is this a commentary on, the food industry, cereal, sugar? I don't know. But it was fun. It was trippy. And the music was great. And you know what? We have some footage of your band performing. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. They're going to cue it up. Great. Wow, that's you guys are really. I felt like I should have been banging my head, but I don't think do people still do that?
Oh, of course, yeah, sure. Although I haven't been to a concert yet since COVID. I think I will be going to my first one next Friday. Yeah.
I imagine
So I'm
that's
excited
hard
for that.
That's great. So
Yeah.
I imagine that must be hard for a musician and filmmaker. How did you handle COVID? Were you more creative at the time? Were you writing, storyboarding more? How did you handle it?
A lot of music writing. I find screenwriting incredible. Like you said, you're a screenwriter. I find it just unbelievably difficult, which is why this video largely just worked off of a treatment, except for like the little the beginning intro thing I wrote. I wrote a little tiny 2-page script. So a lot of music writing, which comes way more natural to me, and it's way easier for me. But yeah, so a lot of music writing. We finished recording a new album for Gorilla Wizard, and then I think next month or December I'll be going in and recording a solo project under the name Maysong is the band. And then and that project isn't even the stuff I wrote in COVID. So there's even more stuff. There's plenty of material. It's just dying to get out there, but I'm lazy. But I'm working on it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you got a lot of stuff going, but yeah, writing is tough. Trust me, I know. But it's a labor of love, I guess. I do have one question about the shoot. So there's this beautiful church, a cathedral.
Yes.
So how did you go to the priest and say, hey, we want to shoot a metal video in the church?
Nope. We we looked it up. It's open to the public.
Mm-hmm.
The church did say that we could go in without any sort of paperwork signed or anything like that, but we couldn't set up tripods or whatever, something like that. We shot this in 2019, so and it wasn't finished until last year. But the church, I've been obsessed with that church since I was a kid. It's in a town called Garden City on Long Island in New York. I've always loved driving by it. There's also across the street from it like what looks like an old school boarding school. Yeah, so those two landmarks in Garden City are both like cinematically gorgeous. And I was like, hey, I wanted to do the Temple of the Gorilla Wizard. What's a cool looking church? Because that's very, very Tim Burton-esque kind of Gothic style looking church. We had originally wanted to do drone footage over the top, but we couldn't get the drone to work. So we were kind of left with whatever you see in the video. Yeah. And we were going to go in, and I think at that point it had, because our shoot went long, and by the time we got there, the doors were locked. But yeah, there was supposed to be a shot of him actually entering, and that's why when he touches the door handle, he kind of materializes inside. But yeah, I love that church so much. I would shoot. I would include that in everything I do in the future.
And you have the boarding school too. It sounds like you're going to shoot something else there really soon, huh?
There's definitely an idea. I pitched an idea to a director for that boarding school, like a script idea, years ago, and I never heard back from him. He was just kind of a random dude that popped up on the internet. But yeah, I would love to shoot in that thing, and that whole area's got a lot of really good stuff. Long Island's kind of cinematic in a way.
Yeah, that's great. And shooting out with a drone. I mean, people are doing that more and more.
Yeah.
Are drone cameras expensive compared to other types of cameras?
We had a buddy's drone that he was like, I think it wasn't, I don't think it's a crazy piece of equipment, but he was definitely adamant that we were careful with it, which is why we didn't want to push too hard when we couldn't get it to work. We didn't want to, by some miracle, get it working and then not know how to operate it, and not only break the drone, but like knock the steeple off the church, Yeah,
I don't want to do that.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Well,
so
that's a detail about the shoot. Thanks for sharing. I had going into this, I had no idea that this metal video was shot on a drone on a church nearby. So that's why I love these Q&As, because we get to talk to filmmakers and hear these great stories.
If you ever want to go to a mall, Roosevelt Field Mall right on Long Island, you pass that church.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I do love churches. I'm not a person of faith, but churches are such beautiful buildings. I want to shoot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's, unfortunately we have to wrap up. It's been so great having you.
Thank you for having this. Is great. I love this.
Maple
you guys
Crunch
are awesome.
is a great trippy video for anyone who's interested. Please check it out. It's curated in there's a shorts block and a music video block. It's curated in both. Please check it out. Want to shout out your social or something where you can look at your other projects or your band? Shout out your band.
Yeah. Yeah, so the band is gorilla_wizard on Instagram. My music Instagram account is Ryan MCE Guitar. Have fun navigating that when I messed it up. But yeah, those are the two ones. And yeah, we'll definitely be back. We're trying to do another video, and then I'm also working on a short that, like I said, is difficult to write. So
keep writing. Okay, let me know. I'll I give notes and coverage, but keep
that
at
would be
it.
great. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thanks so much, Ryan. Take care.
You guys are great. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Awesome. So that was moving right along to our next guest, our next film. Today, we are focusing a bit more on music and performance and dance. And our next film, To Be or To Be Flat, is one of the films in that category. It's a documentary about a composer. Let's take a look at the film To Be or Be Flat, and then we'll speak to the producer and the director.
Everybody, this is Hauke Harder.
And this is Viola Rusche.
And this is our film called To Be or To Be Flat. So why should you watch a documentary on a Belgian composer of new music?
Because it's Boudewijn Buckings.
And he has written 9 unfinished symphonies.
The shortest one, less than 40 seconds. Probably the shortest symphony in the world.
And we have it in full length in the film. And he has written 1001 sonatas for violin and piano.
Don't worry, they won't be all in the film. That would take 16 hours or more.
But some of them are in the film, and they are so beautiful, you won't forget them. And then there is his philosophy of the unfinished, and I think that's super interesting for every artist.
Don't worry, our film is finished.
Huh? Who knows?
Hello, we're back. That was a clip from To Be or To Be Flat, and we'll be speaking to the director and producer, Viola Rusche. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Greetings from Portland.
And thanks. Hi, and Hauke Harder. They're with us today in this Q&A. Welcome to the Portland Film Fest Meet the Director Q&A. How are you?
Hi. Oh, fine. And
How
you?
are you? I'm well, thanks. I'm in Brooklyn. I didn't make it out to Portland this time.
Okay.
But it's great that you guys were there. I know that you are based, I believe, in Belgium or
in Germany.
Germany. Okay, sorry. Yeah. But the
composer. B, but Berlin. It's not Belgium, but Berlin. We have it with the B's,
But the composer, he's Belgian, isn't he?
It's Belgium.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. So, as I said, this fest, one of the specially created programs is music, documentaries, music videos, and it's great. We think that music is so vibrant, it's so fun. Everyone loves music documentaries. Everyone loves musicians. Can you tell me how you came across Boudewijn? Can you pronounce his name? I don't know. Flemish? Is that a Flemish name? I'm not good with Flemish. Sorry.
It's a Flemish name. It's Boudewijn Buckings.
Okay, thanks. I wish it'd been in French. I speak French, but not Belgian. Sorry. Or Flemish. So how did you find him as a subject? What was your relationship to him before in conceiving this film?
Yeah, I'm a composer myself. And Boudewijn Buckings is a good friend of mine. So I know him already nearly 30 years or even longer. And I had a concert series I organized several years ago, and he was one of the composers I invited, and I admire his music very much.
That's great. So, and how long have you been shooting footage of him?
We had only 2 shootings. So it was 1 week in Spain and 1 week in Belgium.
Oh, I see. And as far as how did he feel about letting you into film his creative process? Some people are touchy about that, some aren't.
Yes, I think he was not so. Of course, he said yes because he trusts him a lot. But on the other hand, he was not so patient. He was not used to be filmed, so repeating a thing or having more patience was very difficult for him. So maybe he regretted even at one time, but then he was very, very helpful at the same time also.
Yeah, I think that's an issue that a lot of documentary filmmakers come up against, especially if you're documenting a creative person and a creative process. And or any subject for that matter, to what extent, having a camera present, to what extent that changes what the subject is doing or changes the story. I know there are various sort of schools and theories of this in documentary filmmaking. How do you tend to approach this question?
Well, I think he was kind of, he even suggested that we could film him while he composes. So he doesn't feel so shy about that. Yeah. It was more shy about doing normal things where he said like, oh, when I make the coffee and you look, that was more difficult for him than being filmed while he was composing. He loved that even.
So he was even at the Millennium, he was composing to write the first piece in the 21st century. So he started in the last century and he did it on stage. So he was composing on stage to enter the new millennium. So he was agreeable. He was agreeing to be filmed composing. So, and he was composing during the shooting, the credits music. So this was just one shot of 1 hour, and he was just composing the piece that is in the film, the credits music.
That's really interesting, and that's very provocative. It's an approach of, that's probably as organic as you can get in a documentary, that someone is composing music that's actually part of the documentary while you're filming. I understand that this composer, he's provocative in so many ways, and he likes to sort of challenge our notions of music and audiences. Is this what drew you to him, aside from your personal relationship?
Can you say that again, please?
I understand that this composer, he's a very sort of provocative, experimental composer, musician. He challenges perceptions and expectations of music performance. Is this what drew you to him, other than your personal relationship?
I think Balduin Bückings really took a path in contemporary music which was not very well known at the time he did it. It was in the 80s, to go back from the typical avant-garde music to take, let's say, well-known music and to work with this well-known music from the music history. So his music sometimes, you listen to a piece and you think it's maybe Brahms or I don't know. And then at a certain point, it changes completely. And this type of music is really, was at that time when he started this, was hardly known at all. So he was very risky. And a lot of people in Belgium, for instance, they couldn't really understand what he was doing because he was so far from the mainstream of contemporary music. And I personally enjoyed it very, very much, the way he did it. So I felt very close to his approach of music.
I see. Would I be wrong in assuming he's part of the tradition of, was it John Cage who performed a silent performance like in the 60s? Is that kind of experimental tradition he's part of?
Yes, that's a piece 433, what that you just mentioned. It's a piano piece of 3 parts which are completely silent. So the pianist is just sitting at the piano and not playing, right. But it has 3 parts, interestingly. And he feels in that tradition, Balduin Bückings, and he wrote even his thesis on John Cage.
Oh, of course.
But on the other hand, he knew that he couldn't go on that way. He had to do something different to be creative. So he didn't want to take the same path. He thought that he had to do something different, but also John Cage did some similar experiments in the 50s and 60s when he was writing dances, for instance, and so on. So something completely different from these pieces that were just silent. And Balduin Bückings felt of being in that tradition, but taking a completely new path.
Well, that's incredible that he's managed to experiment and push boundaries for so long. But I think that's the struggle all artists have, how to not be derivative. I'm sure that applies to your work as filmmakers. This dedication to finding interesting stories, telling them in an interesting way. I'd love for you, Viola, to talk to us about, your creative path and how you source your ideas and to come up with your film projects?
Well, I mean, we are cooperating because I'm working more as an editor and he's the composer. So that is a good combination in that in the way. I was interested in those people because we made 4 films about composers of new music, and they are very different artists, and they all have a very clear attitude, although the attitude itself is very different, but they have an attitude, and the attitude itself I learned a lot from it. I learned about art while interviewing them, while being with them. And then it was really fun. It was work, but it was really fun to make a film out of it. So it's something that is interesting for me, and I can grow with it, so to say, in editing that. And maybe that's not completely what you expected to hear, but you can ask again.
No, this is a Q&A. We're just chatting, and
yeah, right.
This as a platform to let our viewers meet the filmmakers and to see what they have to say about their projects. Were there any notable moments in the filming of this? I mean, production-wise, it was a 2-day shoot, you said, but there are always technical issues or complications sometimes, at least.
Well, we had to do our films on very low budgets, and of course you are very well prepared when you go for shooting, but there are always things that do not work the way you want to have them. But I must say we were very much on the lucky side. One of the biggest problems or concerns we had with the film on Boudewijn Bookings was that for the first time we had to find a lot of images for the music, and we didn't want to edit the images with the music, but just to find one images and to put one of these short pieces just to one image. He wrote this 1001 sonatas. Most of these sonatas are just 1 minute long. Mm-hmm. And so we thought we can have many of these sonatas in the film, and just having one image with one sonata. And this was really, we were really worried about that, if we could get images that would work with his kind of music. And I think we had a lot of wins. So I must say, so we found really very nice images. But so for instance, one day our cameraman looked out of the window and he saw that there was just smoke coming up, but it was just moving only in the horizontal plane, and so we just filmed it, not knowing what we could do with it. And then we found one of his sonatas working perfectly with this very slow moving smoke in the background in the landscape. And sometimes you have to find these things that they work, and they have to work for 1 minute. On the other hand, for instance, we plan to have in Spain, you have a lot of these white walls in the garden, for instance, and the palm trees, they make very beautiful shadows on these white walls. And we thought we could have sonatas with these very nice movements of the shadows on the white walls. But on the other hand, the movement of the shadows hardly went together with the movement of the music, because the movement has its own. The music has its own movements, but also the palm trees had their own movement. And it was so difficult to find music working together with these images from the palm trees. In the end, we found one image. This is the one you see, which entered the film, but we couldn't find any more. So it was just the one that worked out.
But there was also a nice moment when we were in our flat. We rented a flat when we were in Belgium. And they said, well, be careful, there's a construction site outside, but you will be out during the day, and so it won't bother you. And then I looked out of the huge window and I saw such an absurd picture of things being taken over a little river, because there it's all very small there in Belgium, and say they couldn't transport it at the spot. They had to put it over this little river, and things were just brought in front of our eyes and I immediately said, come on, we'll have to film that. And in the end, it was just the perfect image for one of the short symphony. So this is something you cannot plan.
Yeah, you have this image, it's called construction site. And there's, of course, the things are hanging at the crane, and so they are moving. And these movements were very, very nice, you know.
Well, those are great anecdotes. I mean, that's why I think people love these Q&As with directors, because, you know, you don't understand or know exactly the circumstances of capturing these shots and making these beautiful cinematic moments. And those sound like very organic moments. And your approach to representing his music visually, I'm sure that was an added degree of difficulty and challenge, but, you know, you've managed to capture some incredible cinematic moments with the music and the visuals, and it's a really lovely, lovely touch.
Mm-hmm. And there was also one story more. We looked for an interview place, and it didn't work. And in the end, we were in a concert hall. And then even the cameraman looked up and said, "Well, there's a little loge. Why can't we do it there?"
Box.
A box, yeah, a theater box. And then it was the director said, "Well, it's the King's Loge, so normally it's not open, but I will open it for you." And then we had the case that our protagonist is a real anarchist, and he has even the same name as the king, and he was interviewed in the King's Loge, and he has a lot of humor, so he didn't care. And it's a beautiful. We couldn't have planned that either. It was just really something we were lucky.
It's called the single, if you want to show the image of the single.
I don't know if we have that. I'm sure the green room will they'll pull it up. I don't know if we have that asset in our folder.
Yeah,
it's the single.
However.
But if not, you know, viewers, when they, you know, can look for that in the film, it's another way to plug and ask the viewers to, you know, buy tickets to DAB Flat to check out the film. But, you know, I think that you touched on something that's so crucial. You mentioned, you know, low budget. Funding is so crucial to independent film, documentaries, features, shorts. Because you are European filmmakers, it tends to be the case that there's more government subsidy and support of the arts, which is not the case in the US. It's much limited. It's a very limited sort of source of funding. Can you tell us a little bit more about your funding and if you had any government grants? Oh, actually, we have a.
Yeah, that's exactly the box of the king in Belgium.
Oh, that's it.
What else was the funding?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a great shot.
yeah, it's wonderful. We were so happy because we didn't know where to shoot, and then one person was just suggesting we should try that, and it was absolutely perfect because it's also about the orchestra piece of his, and so you can even see the orchestra in the background somehow, you know.
Yeah, that's absolutely a perfect shot and a perfect representation of that. That's you. It seems like you guys were really lucky on this shoot. You had a lot of lucky, just auspicious moments, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said. We had a lot of wins in our film. A lot of wins. Yeah, hardly any losses.
But maybe that's also that you make plans, and with not so much budget, you make even more plans because you don't have so much time and so on. But in the end, you have to be, at the moment, maybe you have to be open for things that can happen, and that you should realize that they are there. If you're too like that, then it doesn't happen. But you had a question about funding, so maybe.
Yes, but absolutely, agility is so important from what I hear from makers, just to be agile and, you know, be in the moment. And, you know, when you don't have a large budget, you have to just respond to what comes your way. And you've obviously done that.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So if we can discuss funding, and before we wrap up, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got our funding from, you know, Germany is divided as the US and in different states, and we got money from the most northern state in Germany. It's the county Schleswig-Holstein, and they have some special funding for film, which is also they have only a small budget to give to filmmakers, and we got just enough money to do it. But it was more or less a labor of love, you could say.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad you were able to secure that funding and to make this film. And
Yeah,
just,
we are so glad that we could do it. Yeah, yeah.
That's great, and document this very provocative, experimental composer. And thank you for submitting it to the Portland Film Fest. I wish we could chat more. I wish we could show more clips and stills from the film, but we have to move on to the next guest.
Of course. Yeah.
If you'd like to shout out the socials for the film or your socials, please do so.
Okay. Was war's denn?
Das habe ich jetzt auch nicht verstanden.
I didn't understand.
Your social handles. Is there an Instagram account for the film?
No, we don't have.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. It's fine. The film is not done enough work.
We have websites, though.
We would like to thank you for having us. We would like to thank you for having us in the festival, and we are so lucky because the first filmmaker, we made a film of Alvin Lucier. His daughter is living in Portland, and so we are very happy to be at the Portland Film Festival.
Portland is a great town. Thanks so much for participating and for showing this film. It's been a pleasure. So again, we're moving on to our next guest, and again, we're focusing a lot on music films and dance, and it's really great that we can focus on that. And we couldn't do that without the support of our sponsor, Comcast. We'd like to thank Comcast for its 5th consecutive year of tremendous support. Without their support, we couldn't bring this Q&A webcast to you. The fest would be a lot shorter, a lot smaller. So we'd like to just thank our sponsor. And we're going to jump into our next guest, our next film. It's a really cool film called Diatribe, From the Village to the Streets. And we have we'll be speaking to the director, AJ Wone. If I'm mispronouncing that, he'll correct me soon. But let's take a clip. Look at the clip from this film. Thanks.
Culture, his vibe with his music from Ghana.
And we're gonna play for you what in English means sunshine.
Welcome to the Portland Film Fest. AJ Wone, did I pronounce your name correctly?
It's one. Okay, it's like the number.
Okay, one. That's a great name to have. So yeah, we just saw a clip from your film Diatribe, From the Village to the Streets. And it's a great film about dance, a lot of dance.
A lot of dance.
Yes. And some of the longest dance traditions that we've seen. So can you tell us what inspired you to make this film?
I'm so happy to be here with the Portland Film Festival. I'm very excited about that. What inspired me?
Are you a dancer by trade?
No, I'm not a dancer. I used to dance when I was a little bit younger, but I'm not. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an editor, and I love the culture. I was hired in Portland to come to Legacy Emmanuel for Obo Adi's 75th birthday celebration, and he was also having a fundraiser for his nonprofit. And I saw that his health was, he looked like he was debilitating. So I, as opposed to taking photo, I took video instead. And once I showed them, he and his wife, Susan, they really liked the videos, and they started to ask me to come around and kind of trail them a little bit. And I got the idea of possibly doing a documentary So they said someone had already offered to do a documentary and got a free trip to Accra and filmed a whole bunch of stuff and didn't keep their word. So the whole basis of this documentary is about keeping the word. And the only reason why the documentary was created was Obo and I established a really close bond very fast. And I really started to want to be around him like he was my big uncle, and putting me up on his experiences in Accra. And I would tell him about growing up in Los Angeles. And he came from Accra to Ghana, from Accra to Portland. I came from LA to Portland. And just through this chance encounter, we created this idea to gather all the components of hip hop together. As you see, Israel Ano, Mike Crenshaw, who everybody knows in the Northwest hip hop scene, and me cheesing right there with one of Obo's shirts that his wife had handed to me that I wore for the performance in Washington Amphitheater. So this is what happened.
Okay. I'm not sure if a lot of people are familiar with Mr. Obo Addy. Can you just explain who he is and that he's a drummer from Ghana? Just a little bit about him, because you chose him as your subject.
He kind of chose me as the subject. He trusted me to. This is what the documentary is. The documentary is like a work in progress, really, because there's like 3 prongs going on with this. It lightly touches on our relationship, our kinship, how we started to build a likeness for each other. The second part was through our kinship, we started to devise a musical stage production that we wanted to put, and we still want to get it to Broadway. And he and I collaborated on a concept where we were going to go back in history and time, and he was going to talk about growing up watching breakdance in Accra in the 30s and in the 40s. And I said, well, breakdance started in the 80s in the Bronx. He said, no. I remember the break in the 30s, 40s. And I said, in your when you were 30 or 40? Because that would make better sense. He said, no, the 30s and 40s. I said, no. So me and a brother named J.D. Spinks in North Carolina, we have a nonprofit ourselves called the Department of Afro-American Research, Arts, and Culture. And we have gathered the largest digital collection of Black media, which includes race films from the 20s and 30s.
That's a great archive. Wow.
It's a very large, extensive archive. And in there, we have John Bubbles, the father of Rhythm Tap. Everyone knows, a lot of people know the Nicholas brothers, Bill Bojangles Robinson, Bill Bailey, the Berry brothers. And I saw breakdancing in the 20s and 30s. And I said, oh, Obo was correct. And I thought you never bet against the elders. You know, when they say what they remember, you follow that, you honor that.
Yeah, I mean, the film opens, or in the beginning of the film, there's a really great series of clips of old 40s dance footage.
Right.
And I mean, I've seen some of these swing dance. If you watch any documentary about Duke Ellington, Cap Calloway, and dancing and music in the 30s and 40s, and you see some of the real footage, like this was some intense dancing. This is not the average ballroom dancing. These are it's very intense dancing. And I think that the point of your film and the point of your work with Mr. Odo Abe is to find the connection and to sort of source the tradition of that dance coming from African dance. Am I correct?
Exactly. That's the whole purpose. So the other fold to this is to have Diatribe become a docu-series where we go to each African nation and trace back to the traditional dance, and then I connect it with the dance that was spawned in America. So if someone has a dance in Botswana that looks like the Troop or the Izod Lacoste that we started in the mid 80s, then we'll connect them together like that. And since we have 54 nations, everybody's grooving and dancing in all 54 nations, just like they are in the 50 states here. So Diatribe it's a movement that was based off of a moment. And we got a lot of people together. There's so many things. I'm just so happy to be back in Portland and have Portland recognize how powerful and tremendously impactful that Obo Adi had been for 35 years in Washington and Oregon, because everybody knows who he is, you know, and right when I really started to get close to him, he passed away September 13th, 2012. So 9 years later, or 8 years later, I woke up one morning and I said, I told him that I'd keep my word and I don't want to do what had been done to him before. So let me wake up, put all this footage on the timeline,
Yeah,
and create something.
It shows. There's a lot of footage here. You've been shooting. I mean, there's so much incredible footage here. You have footage of the dancers from the 30s and 40s. You have footage of some of your crew, your pals from LA in the street art scene. And then you have, as well as footage of people, I don't call it breakdancing, I call it street movement. And that's like the fancy word for choreography now. And I think that sort of legitimizes it, which, why should it? But anyway, it's a form of dance, street movement. And great footage of African dancing and sort of live sort of African drumming, which is the tradition that your subject comes from. How can you tell us about traveling to Africa and how shooting there, and how did that come about?
I haven't been to Africa. That was footage from the person that didn't keep their word.
You were lucky to get that footage.
Right. I was very lucky to get that footage. And once Obo passed away, a lot of his collection went to Oregon State. And I think they created a archive that has a lot of the footage from there. I've been editing since I was 10 years old. So the edit sequences in here are masterful, if I may compliment myself, because the one that you showed, which I'm in amazement by, is when it started with Obo on the balafon. That was music from an album, and I had just intercut it perfectly to where it seemed as if he was really playing the balafon right there. I put it there perfectly, and he played it exact to how he did it on the track in the studio.
I see.
And yeah, he taught me so much about it. I mean, I grew up, my mother was a Soul Train dancer, and I grew up on the set of Soul Train, but he gave me a different form of rhythm that I didn't have before. And
it shows. I mean, I think that shooting and editing dance footage, especially in African dance, especially West African dance. I took an African dance class once, and the beats are so intricate and they're so fast. So I can just imagine like filming that one. But as you said, you edited this footage. Editing this footage must, it's obviously, as you said, a masterful job. I know it wasn't easy. So it's great. But still, I mean, even though you inherited a lot of footage and you have footage from archives, making a film, editing it all together, it still requires a lot of time, effort, and money. Talk to us about the funding, because funding is so important, so crucial for indie filmmakers.
The funding, we got some funding from the Collins Foundation and through RAC. That was footage from the musical performance at the Alberta Rose Theater, and we were funded for that. We were able to gather many artists from Portland, a lot of the Krumpers and the dancers, and of course, the band Okrapong, which was Obo's band. We got funding through that. when it came to the documentary, zero. The funding was my heart and my determination to keep my word. So I funded my responsibility and held myself accountable for keeping my word to him. And I said, if we can, speaking in spirit of Obo, if we can continue to do what I say and what we say, then something greater and bigger can come from this. So I submitted it to the Pan-African Film Festival. That was the first film festival that accepted it. And Portland Film Festival has been the 31st film festival that has taken it. It's been all over the world. It's got 10 Best of documentary awards. And I'm pretty sure that Obo is very happy that the word was kept, and we're going to keep pushing until we get to Broadway, ultimately.
Well, it sounds like your film is just really blazing through the festival circuit. Congratulations.
I'm thankful. I love seeing the French subtitles. Oh,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
That's so official right there. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Look
And
at
this
that.
again was the inherited footage.
Oh, it's so perfect. Yeah, and what he said right here, he said something can come from Portland. He pointed his fingers and he said something can come from Portland. Does it have to come from Hollywood or New York all the time? And he says, he talked to Eddie Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Let me translate this for you right here. I talked to Eddie Harris and he said, hey, why don't you come to New York? And he said, no, I'm here in Portland. Portland is America too. Something can come from Portland. And he said that Obo brought this musical trend called world beat, the genre called world beat. He brought it to Portland and he said, you guys let it go. You let other cities claim it and you took it to other cities. See, that's what he's saying it right there. And he says, if you let this diatribe run away, or if you let this diatribe go, I'm just going to run away. That's it. If you all don't support it, I'm going. And 4 months later, he did go. But we're gonna continue to push it. I'm keeping my word, and this is clear. I'm so happy finally to be here with Portland, recognizing it for Obo and all of his family. So we're going to continue to push. We're not stopping.
Well, it's great that you have been able to maintain your promise to this very dear friend of yours, and you can honor him with film and honor his work. It's been so great chatting with you, and we're so lucky and so happy to have this film at the Portland Film Fest, because everyone else is, giving you awards, but it's a great film. It belongs here, and especially in Portland. And I had no idea that Portland was a major city for World Beat. And that's a great tidbit.
Exactly. Okay. Did I look nervous? I was very, was I looking nervous? I know we're getting ready to the best show in town. Okay. Yes. Was I nervous?
No, we're still on air. You're great. You're a natural storyteller, a great speaker.
Yeah, I know you're still on air. I just wanted to ask everybody that's watching, am I nervous?
I don't get a nervous vibe from you at all. Okay. I would not believe it if you told me. So you might be, but I don't see it. So it's been great having you on as a guest, and I love this film. Please check it out if you love dance, if you love the history of African music and dance and music overall. You will love this film. Please check it out at the Portland Film Fest and give tickets to your friends. Thank you so much, Mr. One, for joining us. Next we will be speaking to the filmmakers of The Best Show in Town. Let's see, and we will have the director.
Hi, my name is Annie Hoffman. I'm the producer and director of the film The Best Show in Town. The Best Show in Town is a documentary about a theater troupe of 50+ actors, all with different developmental challenges. They get together each year in Venice, Florida to put on one of the most engaging theater performances you'll ever see. What theater is giving these individuals is, in fact, life-changing. And what they're giving audiences is a new perspective on what it means to live with a developmental challenge. I truly hope that this film will give you as much joy to watch as it has given me to work on. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy The Best Show in Town.
Hello, Amity.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to the Portland Film Fest.
Thank you. Very happy to be a part of this. This is exciting.
Yes, great. This is Amity Hoffman. She's the director of The Best Show in Town. And we'd like to, just chat about, why you decided to make this film.
Awesome. So my background's actually in theater as an actress and a costume designer. I had costume designed this troupe many, many years ago. But I really didn't have any real perspective about everything that they were accomplishing as a group, both on stage and off stage. Later in life, not that long ago, 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to get into documentary filmmaking. So I kind of came at it very non-traditionally. I'm, a mom of 2 kids working. So I went back to school part-time. This actually started as a class project that was supposed to be like a 10-minute video. And life happens, careers change. And I decided to go ahead and embark on my own to go ahead and make it as long as it needed to be. It's kind of in that weird time frame of 42 minutes to be able to tell their story and to kind of have that mission of spreading the awareness of inclusion through theater and how important it is for individuals with developmental challenges to have some sort of outlet to be seen by their community. Oftentimes, once an individual with a developmental disability ages out of the school system, the day programs that are available are expensive. And they're very underfunded by many of the states. I know Florida, not to tell on them, but they're like 45th in the nation for being able to fund day programs. So a lot of individuals can't afford to participate. And these theater programs, and they're all over. One thing I did do was make sure I researched as much as I could to find as many theater troupes across the US that do this sort of thing. A lot of these theater troupes are free for individuals, or a very nominal fee for them to be able to participate. And it's big because a lot of the individuals that come to these theater troupes are either nonverbal or they have high anxiety, which is part and partial for their disability. But just like any of us, when we want to do something, we give it 120%, and that's what they do. And a lot of them overcome some of these symptoms or side effects of these disabilities, like communication skills. And that's leading them to go and work in their community. They ask to work a job. Some of them ask to live independently of their parents. Which is something a lot of their parents never thought would happen. And that's a big deal, because this is going to be the first generation of individuals with developmental challenges that outlive their parents. And that is a big concern for a lot of parents. So
I see. That's an interesting detail. I would like to mention to our viewers that, this year Portland is curating a special section of films, voices for special needs. I believe we're calling it Voices of Ability. And this film, your film, The Best Show in Town, is one of those. Yours is also curated in the Women's Voices section. So kudos to you for, making a film that tackles these 2 really important issues and important lenses in filmmaking today. So let's see. We have a clip. We're just gonna, I think, run a clip from the film for a little bit, or maybe these are just stills, so we get an idea of that. So you mentioned that your background is in theater, but yes, making the transition to docs. One of the big issues I know for documentary and for documentary filmmakers is how you interact with your subjects. And I imagine, just given the nature of the subjects that you've chosen and the various needs, particular needs of the subjects and of each particular player, that impacted your shoot. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So trust is a big thing, especially when you're tackling a subject like this. Any subject in documentary film, there has to be an element of trust between the filmmaker and the subject. The cool thing about this one is that we're actually involved with the theater troupe. My daughter and I do actually volunteer our time outside of creating this film with the troupe. So there was already an element of a relationship built in that really helped us be able to follow them. I really wanted people to feel like they were a part of the rehearsal process for the whole 9 months, to kind of really feel that joy and energy that comes from that, being a part of that group. Because I think a lot of people, well, I know a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do that, or even think about, volunteering their time at a theater troupe like this. So so that is a big element of it. One thing that I wish we could have done with this film that I'm actually considering in kind of pursuing for future projects is the fact that I wish we could have allowed the actors and actresses to be a little bit more a part of telling their own story. This particular theater troupe is a partnership between a community theater and a day program. So we had HIPAA that we had to kind of be careful of, and it didn't give me access to the actors outside of the theater. But I think that there is still more story to tell. And I think that story needs to be told by them. And so that's something that I'm hoping to pursue for future projects.
Yeah, that sounds like a fitting subject matter for your next projects. And so I'm wondering, I imagine there are some, performers, there's so many things going on, some emotional moments. Were there any moments where you decided to turn the camera off, or not to film, or not to include?
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, the moment that I wish we could have included, and it was really a story to be told by the parent, was the fact that there was one individual, Jordan, who you see a little bit in this film. That year that we followed, it was his first time being a part of the troupe. And in years past, he had such bad anxiety that he just couldn't be on stage, and he decided just to be an usher. But that particular story, because of his participation in the theater troupe, he, again, grew in confidence. And the mom had written a lovely piece in the program that talked about how she got the opportunity, because Jordan had grown in confidence, he decided to go live on his own, which, again, she didn't think that would be possible, or that he would want to do that. And she was able to go back to school and finish her nursing degree, which is really important. These theater troupes have like this ripple effect, this butterfly effect. It goes beyond just what is happening on stage. It goes to what the audiences receive and the change in their perspective, like I mentioned in that video, to how it affects the families that are their caregivers. And then, as a society, our perspective of what's possible, and just an awareness. I was at a film festival, and somebody asked the question, or made the statement, that they were surprised that there were so many individuals with a developmental disability in one area to put together a theater troupe.
Oh,
and I was glad he asked that question, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is they make up 20% of the population. It is the largest minority group. So the question becomes, why aren't they more visible? And that's what we're trying to achieve, is to try to give them a larger stage to be seen on, and to shine, because they definitely shine. It's the most fun you'd ever have with a group of actors. And I've worked with a lot of actors. So these are the best actors you could ever work with, most attentive, joyful group. And they uphold each other. They really uphold each other. They support each other. There's a wonderful scene there with Jordan, where he's auditioning and he just is having a whole lot of trouble. And one by one, those actors get up and they start dancing and singing with him.
Right. So many great stories that are on camera. So many that were not on camera, but that's just the challenge of being a filmmaker, especially a documentary filmmaker, shooting all this footage. And at the end of the day, you have to, in post, and you're trying to, because your film is about 45 minutes. That must have been really hard on the cutting floor, especially if you had such a bond with the subjects of your film.
Yeah, I did bring in a co-editor. I mean, this was a DIY project. This is my first film. If anybody wants to talk about first-time filmmaking, I guess I'm the girl. But this was definitely a first-time filmmaker effort. Shot it, edited it, produced it, directed it. But I did finally have to bring somebody else in to look at it, because after a while, you just can't see your film anymore. I feel like you can't see your project. And our goal was to kind of just really keep it clipping, keep it moving along. It's easy to fall in love with your subject, and sometimes a lot of documentaries, I think, can be just a little too long. And I understand that. But our goal was to just kind of tell the story in the amount of time, you know, I again, you know, 42 minutes is hard to program. That's why I'm so appreciative that the Portland Film Festival, you know, found a place for it. And that's something I've learned as a first-time filmmaker. But at the end of the day, 42 minutes is what it took to tell the story. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you do leave stuff on the floor. There are moments and scenes and things that I think I had a hard time letting go of, but I still think that we kept the charm of this group intact and still kept the story moving along.
We kept an intimate, touching portrait, but still, you know, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great achievement. Congratulations on being a first-time director.
Thank you.
Having a film that, you know, that's part of the Women's Voices curation as well as the Voices of Ability curation. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the stat, 20%. I didn't know, I wasn't aware of that stat. And I think that you're talking a lot about the need for visibility of these individuals. And I think that more and more, you know, mainstream film, Hollywood, film and television, that's becoming more of a really sort of hot topic issue.
Yes.
And, you know, more and more there's a call for special needs individuals to play special needs characters in film.
Yes.
So are the subjects of your film, I mean, are they aware of this, and do they have aspirations to actually work in film?
No, I don't believe so. This particular group, they're older, right? So these are like older individuals. Some of them, I mean, you know, we shot this 5 years ago, so they're getting up there in age. That being said, there are some theater troupes, and I'll shout a few of them out, that do have actors in their theater troupes that do small films. Family Theater Company, PHALAMY, Family Theater Company. As a matter of fact, I was on their YouTube page today watching some of their short films where they rewrite, you know, the writing of the Constitution from a disability standpoint, or the Bible, or there are theater troupes out there. And I'm going to shout out, on our film's website, there is a tab that says a troupe near you. And on it is every theater group that I know of by state, with a link to their website, so you can support, watch, get involved. But there are theater troupes that are doing some amazing stuff with these actors. And I believe they do have some, you know, film, TV, acting aspirations. And there are casting directors that is their job. That's all they do is work on, you know, casting individuals with a disability, whether physical or developmental. So yeah, no, I think we're slowly catching up, right? There are fantastic series out there, Love on the Spectrum, you know, documentaries like Crip Camp, and we're getting there.
Right.
We have a long way to go, but we're getting there.
Well, we'll add your film to the list of films that are sort of moving the needle and creating a dialogue around that issue.
For sure.
It's been so great having you as a guest on the Q&A today. Can you tell us what your next project is?
Well, I don't know what my next project is going to be. As a matter of fact, where I've had the good fortune of meeting some other women filmmakers. Actually, both of them have a film in the Portland Film Festival.
I'm telling you, everyone, Portland Fest is so hot this year. Everyone is involved.
I
in
know.
Portland Fest.
I know, but it's exciting. You know, you mentioned women film. I mean, it's exciting to meet other women filmmakers. And we have decided, you know, we're going to collaborate. So all of us are kind of touring with our current docs right now, but we met today even. And so the goal is to be very intentional and start a collaboration on another project. In the meantime, I'm going to keep producing commercials, which is what my day job is. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the next project. This has been a great learning opportunity. I have appreciated every moment of meeting other people in the industry, and it's what a nurturing group of people it is. And that's what's really exciting about.
Well, that is so great. I mean, that story warms my heart. I mean, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
And, you know, Portland is doing a great job. Portland Film Fest is doing a great job of really platforming women filmmakers. I mean, I think that one of the Q&As it was mostly female filmmakers, and most of the people I've spoken to are. So there are just a lot of emerging new female voices, and it's so great that we can platform them with the Meet the Director Q&A. So It's been so great having you, Amity. Thank you for joining the Q&A. Thank you for submitting your film to the Portland Film Fest.
Yes, thank you for having us. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Great, thanks so much. So our next guest is the director of the film We All Die Alone. But actually, it is a comedy, so let's not get morose. I know, it's Halloween or All Saints Day, but this is actually a comic film or comic noir mashup, but we'll let the director, Jonathan Hammond, explain that to us. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to the Portland Film Fest.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
It's great. So, yeah, welcome. Where are you dialing in from?
I'm in North Hollywood, California.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So your film, it is a short, and it's in the short block, and I see it's a kind of a noir, kind of a comedy.
Yes, correct. Right now that seems to be sort of popular among filmmakers, sort of the mashup, and that's something that I particularly love. I love when movies can jump from one genre to the next. One of my favorite movies is Something Wild by Jonathan Demme, which starts out with a quirky, sort of romantic comedy, and then it turns into a really, really, really dark noir and thriller, and then it goes back into being.
Yeah. So let's look at a clip from We All Die Alone.
That's not We All Die Alone.
I'm sorry, I don't know. Let's see. That's a clip from, I don't know. Let's see. We'll just keep talking until.
Okay, let's talk.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's a great film. And it's like, and I
Hello, my name is Jonathan Hammond. I'm the writer and director of We All Die Alone. First off, I want to say on behalf of the cast and crew, we're really honored and excited to be at the Portland Film Festival. So thank you for having us, and we're also very excited to see everyone else's films. We All Die Alone is sort of a love letter / homage / inversion of noir and crime films and their tropes. It starts off being kind of obvious what it is, and then turns into something hopefully a little less obvious and hopefully delightful. And I just want to say I hope you, audience member, have as much fun watching this film as we had making it. Again, we're really excited, and without further ado, We All Die Alone.
Svetlana. Yes? I mean, I kind of have to go to the bathroom. What? I think I might be in some trouble here.
Maybe you should have thought of that earlier, pal.
I told you not to get the double crunch gordita.
You went to Taco Bell before you came here?
Badasses still gotta eat. You don't like the Mexican food?
It's not a Mexican restaurant unless they give you free carrots.
You really need to use the restroom.
They have a 2-for-1 entree at Las Olas.
Las Olas is good?
Oh my God, seriously. It's more than enough food for you and your date. But you have to buy a Pepsi.
It is nothing. I enjoy the Pepsi.
If I may.
Wow, the ever-expanding Mexican standoff.
Yeah, right.
Talking about Mexican.
We had a line in there of them saying, this, it sort of jumped from being a Mexican food to Mexican standoff, but we thought that was maybe a little too limited, so it was cut.
But I mean, I got it to come true. I had this discussion with someone, actually an argument, how many guns and people can be involved in a Mexican standoff, but it's infinite.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I guess it's generally, 3? But...
I thought 3, but someone has challenged me on this, right? I need to know. So I need you in my corner, since you shot a film with a great Mexican standoff. So I'll say Jonathan Hammond told me, but that's great. And so I can see the comic noir hybrid, and we have another clip from the film coming. We'll just keep talking until it starts.
Okay.
So going back to noir, look, I love noir films so much.
Right.
Look, if I could, I would watch Lady from Shanghai and Double Indemnity every day.
Yeah.
Like, they're just such incredible films. So do you consider yourself more of like a cinephile kind of filmmaker? Because I know when I mention old films like Maltese Falcon, Lady from Shanghai, to Hollywood, to industry people, they're like, wow, how do you know about that? I mean, I thought we're all supposed to know about that. That's what we do, right?
You should. Actually, you brought up Lady from Shanghai. My favorite Wells noir is actually a movie called The Stranger, which is a little more obscure. I find it more suspenseful.
Is it on Criterion, or where is that?
Say again?
Is it on Criterion? Where is this film?
I I watched it on TCM.
Oh, okay.
So whether it's on Criterion, I don't know.
Okay. I am like jotting that down because Wells and Noir Night that I haven't seen. Oh my God.
I'm definitely like I love all those old movies. I named my dog Dashiell.
Really? Oh, that's so cute.
Dashiell Hammond.
Right. I see. Oh, I get it. Oh.
Yeah, and I also the newer ones. I like all through high school. I read every Jim Thompson book I can get my hands on.
Right.
So at the end of that period is when Quentin Tarantino and when he started taking off. So I also love his films. I love the neo noirs as well. One of my other favorite movies is The Grifters. I don't know why, because I grew up in a really like a happy childhood, but I think there's just something about stories that have these organic twists and turns that are just, to me, it's like a game or puzzle. They're just so fun and delightful.
It's universal that people love.
Right.
Crime stories.
Yeah, and the other reason I wanted to make this movie was because loving all of these loving genre film, you don't really see any like queer representation, and that's kind of a touchy thing to say because you don't necessarily want to see yourself represented as like a murderer or a heroin junkie or anything like that. But there is something about just someone who loves the acting. You don't get to see like queer people represented in noir. Just like they don't get to have the fun that the other people do. So that was another strong motivating factor in making this movie. And since it's not really, it's not something you would think about, I wanted to intentionally bury it in the movie, so that doesn't really come out till.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point that you make there. And I didn't realize that this film was part of the LGBTQ voices, but it's a good thing to know. But I think that like looking at films back then, they were dealing with the Hays Code, right? So the censorship.
Well, yeah, many of them did. I mean, there are noirs that came pre-code, Scarface.
Right. But I'm thinking of like A Touch of Evil. The ultimate villain. Remember, it's like a lesbian gang or something in a hotel.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I guess I didn't think about it, but that was still not. You didn't really. It wasn't just a lesbian though. It was also like all of the other her cohorts.
Right, but it was just this like
also, like the sleazy "I'm gonna rape you," So it's
right.
And it's never said specifically that. I mean, it's obvious, but they never really say it.
Right, but it was. It's like the way that the Hays Code or the filmmakers working underneath that, the way you have to make sure that the villains are very villainized, like these are the bad people,
right?
And this part of representation.
Yeah, Touch of Evil. I mean, that's a movie that had the good guys were the good guys and the bad guys were the bad guys.
Right.
I mean, you didn't have that sort of gray area that a lot of other noirs do, where you have my favorite movie of all time is Chinatown, and you have the Jack Nicholson character J.J. Geddes is he sort of walks around the rules. I guess the point being is that I don't know what my point is. I'm sorry.
Well, I just love talking about Chinatown. I could watch that every night too. But about like Touch of Evil, I'm bringing this up because it's so much of how we represent various people and we talk about stories has to do with the lenses that we sort of think about things through. So, for example, in Touch of Evil, looking at it through a modern lens, Wells' title character, he's a dirty cop. I mean, he's a hero and he's right, but he plants evidence on people and he does horrible things. And he's the kind of person that we're all saying that is not a hero.
Right. Yeah. That's a movie that, like I said, that has like, I think between the good and the bad is really clear. Like Janet Leigh and Charlton Heston are definitely like the good guys. I think we have those cut more from the cloth of probably like The Killers or Reservoir Dogs or something, where they're bad, but you get it's just so much fun to watch.
Everyone loves anti-heroes. People love crime anti-heroes, and people love being thrilled. And so if we can talk a little bit about the shoot of the film. Did you shoot this in LA?
No, so I'm from I just moved to Los Angeles 2 months ago. I'm from San Diego, and this is a San Diego. I made several short films down there. This is a San Diego cast, and I would say maybe half San Diego crew.
I see.
It was filmed in obviously a car storage place called Mortoli, and the cinematographer was from Los Angeles. She divided her time between Los Angeles and San Diego, and there were a few specialized crew people from LA, but the gaffer and other people from San Diego.
Okay, so are you as a filmmaker, when you crew up, are you trying to crew up with a representation of, or a certain number of female crew, LGBTQ, people of color? That's more and more of a thing now. People are crewing up in very specific ways.
Yeah, so I mean that's something diversity is something that's very meaningful to me. I do try to have the most diverse crew as possible. This has definitely been the biggest crew I've ever used, and I specifically wanted to use. I want to use honestly the best people I could find because it was really expensive. But I also ideally wanted to use a woman DP, and I ended up the best person was also a woman, so that was very that worked out quite wonderfully.
Well, I mean, that's great to hear, and that's great to hear that new emerging voices in film are committed to these ideas, and look back on our film history with an idea of what needs to change, what needs to move forward. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so glad to have met someone else who loves these old noir films as much as I do. Yeah. And he named their dog after Dashiell Hammett. Like, you should win the fest just for that. Having a dog named after Dashiell Hammett. So it's been so great chatting to you. We're going to need to wrap up quite soon. Can you tell us about your next project?
My next project is also it's a noir, but it's set in high school. And the way I'm sort of describing it is sort of like Clueless meets Goodfellas.
So Clueless meets Goodfellas. What was the last part?
Blood Simple.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's kind of Clueless, but it's set in a very rundown blue collar small town.
I see.
But I just kind of want to invert Clueless. And then it's a lot of crime.
And this is a short or a feature?
No, this will be a feature.
Oh, that's great. And you're writing it as well?
Yeah, it's an adaptation of a short story by Mark Leidner called Badasses.
Okay.
And I optioned it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I will certainly be looking out for that. That sounds right up my alley. So do you want to shout out your social handle and then before we part?
Yeah, on Instagram on John O'Ham, JONOHAMM is my handle, and on Facebook I'm just Jonathan Hammond. And please find We All Die Alone on both Instagram and Facebook. I think it's We All Die Alone the movie for both of them, and please like us. Okay, great. And also, please check out We All Die Alone on the fest. You can gift tickets to wherever you'd like. You've got a week and change. The fest wraps up on November 8th. So we'd like to thank John Hammond so much for participating in the Q&A and sending his cheeky noir comedy to the fest. We are going to speak to our next guest, who is the director of I Need His Blood for My Poisons, and Sean Parker. Sean Parker, welcome to the Portland Film Fest Q&A.
Hello, thank you so much.
Great. So where are you dialing in from?
I'm actually right here in Portland.
Everyone is in Portland except me. I'm really, I should be in Portland. That's great. So are you a Portland-based filmmaker, or are you there for the fest?
Yeah, I'm actually born and raised here all my life.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So let's see. And your background?
Bum bum bum
and
bum bum.
Oh, is that a clip from the film? Let's see.
Bum 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 bum.
Woke up, discovered 3-year-old had had massive nosebleed. His clothes covered in blood. Washed him, walked into the kitchen, found 5-year-old stirring his brother's bloody clothes in a pot filled with hot water. "I need his blood," he said. "I need his blood for my poisons."
Ho ho! That's a good one.
Well, yeah, again, that was a clip from I Need His Blood for My Poisons. And obviously animation. I am not that much of an expert in animation. Was that stop motion? What kind of animation is this?
No, it's just all finger puppetry. So technically not even, it's kind of fuzzy whether it qualifies as animation or not. Depends on who you talk to, I guess.
I see. Yeah, I guess.
But much quicker and easier to produce than stop motion for sure.
Yeah, well, all of my questions about the tedium of animation, those have gone out the window. But still, I'm sure that your production process was still as challenging and time consuming. Tell us about your process.
Yeah, well, the biggest challenge with this piece was that there was kind of a arbitrary external timeline that the film had to be completed by, because the film is an adaptation of an argument, a real argument I got into online, extremely petty, I should add.
Okay.
And I got the idea to just turn the conversation into this finger puppet show, and the guy I was arguing with agreed that would be great, but he didn't believe I was actually going to do it, and so kind of hounded me for a few days until I finally delivered it. I said, "Oh, I'll have it done by the end of the week." He took it way too seriously, and then the end of the week crept up on me pretty quick. So most of the production was kind of like a frantic 2 or 3 day no sleep kind of thing. Is getting it all done.
So this was a vanity project, and by vanity we mean ego content.
Protecting my own pride, yes.
That's great. Well, you managed to get it done. You submitted it to the fest, and you were selected. So, kudos to you. I guess revenge is a cold dish, huh?
Oh yes.
That's awesome. So your background, is it in puppetry, or what is your background as far as pursuits?
I really have no puppetry experience. I've done a lot of just live action short comedy stuff with real actors and such. My start in film was kind of similar to this. I had a lot of just little action figures, and I just have a VHS camera and just kind of hold them and just kind of wiggle them around to tell stories. So this is the closest thing I've done to that since the old days.
Oh, I see. I mean, I see. Yeah, that's great. So I guess I think my funding questions also are being thrown out. It's a DIY project, correct?
Yes. I bought probably about $20 worth of paint or so to get it done. Other than that, there wasn't a budget.
Well, I mean, that goes to show you. I mean, you can make a film with a lot of money or little money or no money. You tell your story, do something. That's what makes this an independent film and an independent film fest.
Yeah.
So, what are your next projects? Are you going to do more puppetry? Are you going to go back to your comedy roots? What's in the cards for you?
This actually has kind of altered my expected course a little bit into more puppetry. So I'm working on a few follow-ups to this that are just other internet arguments being adapted. There's sort of a sequel.
A lot of arguments?
Well, some of them are things I've found, not always that I've participated in. But there is kind of a sequel where because of the creation of this, the person I was arguing with and I started kind of a pen pal friendship. And so there's quite a lot of material in that I'm working on adapting right now. But also, independent of all of that, I'm working on a show. It's kind of a dream project of mine for the last 10 years that's gotten converted to a finger puppet thing due to the pandemic and not really like figuring out like, okay, how can I safely get a whole bunch of people together to make this big show? Well, if we do it all with finger puppets, only need a couple of people on set. So that's great. And that's sort of a mystery comedy, Sherlock-inspired finger puppet show.
Okay. Okay. And budget-wise, are you going to go high budget with this? You're going to keep it a DIY, home project?
It's a little bit more ambitious, so we're going to have to do a little bit of crowdfunding for our pilot, which will be next month. And then from there, we'll see.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, keep getting into arguments if that's how you keep, or finding arguments if that's what fuels your creative process.
It does.
Be
Yeah.
difficult and cantankerous, and good luck with that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It's been so great having you, and so great having Anita's Blood for My Poisons. I'm sorry we have to wrap up. We have other filmmakers to interview, but it's been great having you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye, Sean. Thanks. Next, we have the filmmaker of Days Before the Dawn. It is a doc about the Hong Kong protests from Trevor Klein, and do we have a clip of that? No. Hi, Trevor. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you dialing in from?
I am right now. I'm in Claremont, California, at Claremont McKenna College. This is where I go to school.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, great. Thanks for dialing in, and you're outside. It's great that you have such good audio and video right now. So yeah, let's get into your film. Days Before the Dawn, the history of the protests in Hong Kong. I remember it was right before COVID hit that the bulk, like the Hong Kong riots were really hot in the news.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a report that, the government has said because of COVID, they have to shut the protests down. And I remember thinking, what kind of nonsense is this? Anyway, so please, as a segue, let's talk about the Hong Kong protests.
Yeah, well, that's actually a really interesting thing because basically in January, when the reports of what was going on in Wuhan were first kind of reaching the world, people in Hong Kong were really, really worried, and they themselves started taking measures to protect themselves at protests. So as soon as cases were in Hong Kong, they chose to practice social distancing and things. On June 4th, 2020, they had a vigil to commemorate the anniversary of Tiananmen Square, and they social distanced that. And the government said they couldn't have that because of COVID. But also keep in mind, during this time, while the government enforces that on protesters, there have been numerous incidents where businessmen have gone out in Lan Kwai Fong, which is like a party district there, and have had drinks indoors en masse, and the police have had no problem with that.
Right.
So they've utilized COVID to quash the dissent, and in that, on July 1st, they imposed a national security law, which basically banned all anti-government speech in Hong Kong in the midst of kind of the protests being more underground because of COVID.
Yeah, I've been following the Hong Kong protests as a free speech advocate, as just like a culturally literate person, and I'm so glad to speak to you about this film. Where did you get your footage? Is this news footage or?
No, so when I was in Hong Kong for 2 months, I conducted a couple dozen interviews or so. I was at a ton of protests and things like that. Some of it is news footage that I got licensed, but most of it is my own.
Okay. And so do you have any ties or background in Hong Kong, or just is it a subject that's dear to your heart?
No, I got interested in it just by following it from afar. And I was 18 years old. I was about to start college, and then I ended up having to get surgery on my hand and was taking a gap year. And as I was kind of recovering from that, I decided just to go and try to shoot this. And I didn't really have any connections there or anything like that, but it was just something I wanted to do.
Oh my God, that's incredible. And this was, so this was 2020 that you did that?
Sorry?
This was last year, 2020, that you did that?
2019, early 2020, yeah. So it was about 2 years ago was when I first landed in Hong Kong.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your hand surgery. I've heard hand surgeries are so tough, just, you know, and especially for a filmmaker. I mean, holding a camera and your hands recovering, I don't know the extent of the surgery, but how did that impact your work?
That's actually super interesting. That's something I haven't thought about in a long time. When I was first there, I was wearing a brace on my hand because by the time I was there, I had pretty much recovered. It just, the strength, it's still not back really in my left thumb because I had to get a ligament replaced basically. But it actually was kind of, my hand would be really exhausted and like at the end of the day, and it would hurt a lot. And so, yeah, I would wear a brace when I was like out at a protest on the ground just to make sure I could hold on to the camera. But yeah.
I mean, the footage I've seen, there, like the protesters there, they were socially distanced, but they were going hard. Like they were serious, and it was very nice.
Yeah. I mean, well, most of the time they weren't socially distanced. That was only after COVID broke out. The majority of the 2019 movement was from June to January.
Well, I mean, some of the footage shows just how devoted they were to their cause, how organized. So let's take a look at some clips from the film and look at the protests.
And as long as CCP exists, we cannot have real freedom and democracy.
Oh my goodness, what harrowing footage. Like my blood is boiling, my skin is crawling. I hate seeing people, you know, beaten and oppressed by anyone, especially, you know, police. So, you know, I'm curious. I screened a lot of films for the fest, documentaries, and there were a few others that were about things happening, not in Hong Kong, but in China proper, and the fallout of Tiananmen. And a very common thread in all of these documentaries was, you know, the hand of government censorship. The police getting involved, taking footage, someone had it back up, smuggled it, et cetera, et cetera. How were you able to, did you have issues with the government, with the police?
I honestly didn't have too many like personal altercations that were extraordinary. Like there were just times where they would, like for example, in that introductory clip that you just showed, there's an example of like the police pushing us back. They were arresting a couple dozen people, I think, and they didn't want us filming. And in Cantonese, they were saying, "Journalists, journalists, back up, back up."
Oh, okay.
And they were telling us. So yeah, it was basically stuff like that, just trying to prevent us from filming certain things. But I didn't have any footage seized or anything like that, luckily.
You were very lucky, I guess, you know, being, you know, a non-national or being a foreigner, you know,
yes,
helped.
Certainly, especially at that time in Hong Kong, because they were still worried about the international image, whereas now that's kind of gone out the window. They'll do anything to crack down the narrative, but they were definitely worried. I mean, I'm a 6'5" American. I stand out there, so I wasn't the I guess the target of the police's violence.
Well, I mean, you're very lucky because as we see, you know, in a lot of these contentious areas of the world, journalists are at risk. I won't mention other countries, but certain countries, you know, journalists are off all the time. Documentary filmmakers, whatever, are off all the time. Are you involved in any other organizations that represent, you know, the rights of the press and journalists, et cetera, et cetera?
I'm not involved in anything like that in particular, but I've lately been working on with a group here at the Claremont
Not
College.
just whether it's part of China or not part of China. That's not the.
Sorry. We're with a group at the Claremont College. It's called the East Asia Political Society. And what we focus on is kind of like raising awareness here about how China in particular and other players in the East Asia region, but China is the big one as far as oppressing democracy and freedom of speech. So we definitely have a lot of conversations regarding press freedom with that.
Yeah, let's, there's a lot of content. Let's take a look at this clip with the audio.
People like myself will continue to adhere to civil disobedience. But what I'm saying is that it will be justified for some people to adopt a more radical stance.
下一位6號梁天琦40秒。
我代表嘅唔止係梁天琦，亦都唔止係本民前，我代表嘅係一個理念。人民唔應該害怕政府，政府應該害怕人民，因為主權在民，我哋香港人先至係呢笪土地嘅主人。請相信我哋要光復香港，我哋要引領一場時代嘅革命。各位，我哋要攞返我哋嘅自由。攞翻一個屬於我哋嘅香港，我哋要掌握我哋嘅命運，我哋唔要再做奴隸，唔要再做奴才，我哋要掀起一場時代嘅革命，時代革命，光復香港，時代革命，光復香港，多謝你哋。
That's some very moving, inspiring footage. Yeah, I mean, these, my hat's off to these activists. I mean, they've risked so much just for basic freedoms that we take for granted. But I must say, what was, everyone loves Hong Kong. It's like this great cinematic city. One of my favorite filmmakers, Wong Kar-wai, is Hong Kong based. So what was it like just being in Hong Kong and like, oh, I'm going to Hong Kong to shoot a film?
Oh, Hong Kong's an incredible city. It was just amazing to spend time there. The food there is incredible. You have some of like just food traditions coming in from all over China and all other regions in Asia. It's really incredible. But as far as like cinematically, there's I'm working on a feature-length documentary right now. This was just like a short documentary to kind of that I put out, and I want to turn it into a feature. And I was able to use this to raise funding and things like that. And I have some great shots, cinematic shots of the harbor and just city life throughout Hong Kong that I'm really excited to use. But one thing I wanted to say about that clip that we just watched was the kind of how important that shift was in Hong Kong from that one older fellow who was talking with the suit. Mm-hmm. He was Professor Benny Tai. He initiated what in 2014 was the largest civil disobedience movement Hong Kong had seen, which was a 79-day occupation of the streets called the Umbrella Movement. And he, for a very long time, was very critical of violent protest. And what the Hong Kong indigenous and that guy, Edward Long, who was wearing the blue hoodie and speaking, was they came out and they said, no, when we're dealing with a government like the Chinese Communist Party, they're not going to be receptive to any of our kind of nonviolent calls for freedom, for what they were fighting for. So it is justified for us to go further and beyond that. And what Professor Benny Tai and other more moderate activists later acknowledged and in these interviews was these guys were actually right. And especially Benny Tai, later in the film, he said, I was basically, he goes, I was wrong. I was wrong about what we needed to do. And these guys, they figured it out. They knew that we needed to go further.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perennial issue when it comes to activism. This very discussion was echoed last summer during the Black Lives Matter protests. To what extent should we protesters stay nonviolent? To what extent is violence justified? I mean, anytime you are up against these, oppressive forces, it's an issue. And interesting to see through the lens of Hong Kong. And it's so great that you've made this film and you've, shown what's really going on over there. Is your background typically documentary, or are you?
Well, I I got into documentary and video journalism, I would say, really by working on this. I've always been interested in writing, storytelling, things like that. But yeah, now I'm definitely, would consider myself a video journalist, but this was really my first project, like big video project. I hadn't done anything prior. I just wrote in high school, like I wrote for the school newspaper, but nothing really other than that.
Well, this is a great, career debut. We can start off with a great subject matter, very daring. So thank you so much for making this film. Thanks so much for shining light on the Hong Kong protests. Thanks for submitting it to the Portland Film Fest. And I usually ask about funding and next steps, but you've already answered that. You're crowdfunding your next feature-length doc about a similar subject matter. Mm-hmm. So it's time to wrap up. And as much as I'd love to keep chatting, do you want to shout out your socials or anything?
Yeah, no, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Trevor M. Klein, TrevorMKlein.
Okay, and we can find more about the film, your next projects there. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So thanks so much, Trevor, for joining us and for submitting this film. For those of you who have not seen Days Before Dawn, you can check it out at the Portland Film Fest, buy tickets, you can give tickets. And I think we are at the end of this webcast, sadly. And before we leave, I would like to again thank our sponsors, Comcast for its 5th consecutive year of support. And they have this new cool thing. If you have the Xfinity handpiece, a remote, you can just speak into it and say Portland Film Fest, and it'll bring up the fest, the website, tickets. You can do that all from the device. I think that's so cool. As a non-techie person, that sounds really cool to me. So please try it out. If not, just go to the Portland website, pdxff.com, to the virtual lobby. You can buy some tickets to the films you haven't seen yet. You've got 7-8 more days. You can give tickets to your friends. You can buy some merch, cute bags, tote bags, cute t-shirts, gift those as well, and just find more info about all of our films. So until next week, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Geisha Marie Bland. I'm a New York-based screenwriter at GM Gecko on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Happy Halloween.